Hi, my name is Nicole Grabow. I'm an objects conservator at the Midwest Art Conservation Center based in Minneapolis, and I'm here at ATALM 2017 to talk about polishing silver. Silver, as many of you know, tarnishes readily in our ambient environment. What it's doing is it's reacting to sulfur that's in our air, and it's forming a corrosion product on the surface called silver sulfide, which starts out, when it first starts to grow and it's kind of thin, it looks a little yellowish and then it kind of changes to iridescent colors. But eventually, when it gets thick enough, it'll be pretty black. And that's what we're seeing here on this spoon is black silver tarnish, something that we've all probably seen before. But when you're getting ready to display or to wear your silver objects, it's nice to give them a polish so that they are restored to the nice, bright, warm white color that silver is known for. I also have here just a little silver coupon to show you. If you are polishing silver for the first time, it's a good idea to maybe visit your jewelry supply and get a little silver coupon so you can practice on that. Our goal with silver polishing is not to scratch the silver. That is our goal. What we want to do with abrasive polishing is we want to find an abrasive that's hard enough to cut through the silver tarnish, but soft enough so that it won't scratch the silver itself. Now, the silver sulfide corrosion layer that's on the surface is only a little bit softer than the silver itself, so we don't have a lot of room to work with. And it's good to approach every object with an open mind and an awareness of what it may represent that's perhaps different from silver things that we've polished before. There are different silver alloys. Some of them are softer or harder than others. Every object is unique. So when you begin to polish, it's important to kind of take a moment to look at your object, to think about areas where it might be structurally maybe not as strong as others, and to start on an area on the back to kind of test it first and to see if you're going to be developing any scratches. If you do find as you're polishing your silver that you are scratching the silver surface, then you would stop. Because if we are scratching the silver, then that shows that we're removing original material. And over the years, silver polishes of varying abrasive strengths have been used on historic materials. And one thing that you might have seen before, sometimes on objects that have silver plate, where the silver is a thin plate layer that's over a substrate metal of a different color like copper or brass. In areas where they've been, where that silver layer is particularly thin, such as on high points or on corners, over years of being polished, the silver has worn away and you can see the substrate metal underneath. So that's just evidence that really aggressive, abrasive silver polishing can remove original material. The technique that I use and that I'm recommending here today has been chosen specifically to minimize that effect. So the idea is that we're not scratching the silver, we're not wearing away the original surface, and we can continue to polish our silver objects like this without hurting them for generations to come, and they will stay bright and strong. So the materials that you're going to need are your silver, some ethanol. This is also known as ethyl alcohol, and it can be purchased from most hardware stores. You can also buy it from a chemical supply company such as Fisher Scientific, and I would recommend using reagent grade ethanol, which is a more pure form of ethanol than what you're going to find in your hardware stores. I would not use denatured alcohol. That's something that is also common in hardware stores. It has ethanol in it, but it has other things in it as well. So don't use denatured alcohol, but find some ethanol and find some distilled water also. And I'm going to pour out a little bit of each. So I like to work with a solution that is half water and half ethanol. Does not have to be exact. And as I'm working, sometimes the ethanol will dry off a little bit faster than the water will, so I might add a little ethanol if I'm polishing for hours and hours. But I just put them together in a little ramekin, stir them up, and I have the solution here. So, solution of water and ethanol. You'll also need a bamboo skewer, loose cotton, and your abrasive polish. And here I'm recommending that we use calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is a wonderful abrasive. It is just hard enough to scratch through the silver sulfide, but it will leave most silvers alone. Now I say most silvers because There are different silver alloys, and a silver alloy that is almost pure silver will be much softer than something that's sterling silver or has a less high concentration of silver. So you do always want to test first and make sure that the calcium carbonate's not going to scratch your object. But this is also known as chalk or whiting, and it's available from a wide variety of different places. We order it from a company called Talus, which is based in New York. You can order it on the internet. This is what it looks like. It's just a nice white powder. I wear gloves when I do this for two reasons. First, I always want to wear gloves when I'm handling a metal object so that the oils from my fingers don't tarnish the metal itself, because that kind of oil tarnishing can cause etching into the surface of the object and be irreversible. But I also use the gloves to protect my hands. The calcium carbonate is really drying, and if you rub it on your skin is going to just get really dry. So if I'm going to be working with it for a while, I like to be wearing gloves. And I prefer these nitrile gloves, and I recommend these. So in order to polish your silver object, you can use Q-tips, but I prefer to roll my own swabs, which if you've seen any of my other SHN videos, you will know that I like to roll my own swabs. But just to walk you through it for the first time, it's good to kind of moisten the tip, and then you grab a little bit of the cotton with the point and wrap it around the swab, like so. And then we're going to test a little area on the back here to make sure that it doesn't scratch. I'm going to dip my swab in the solution so that it's moist but not glistening. Right now it's glistening, so it's too wet. I'm going to roll it off on this paper so that it's not so wet. And then I'm going to dip it into my calcium carbonate. So now I've got a little of the chalk on the swab. And I'm going to go to my object, take off my distance glasses. Sometimes I use magnifying lenses for this kind of work. That can be really good for close work. And I definitely recommend, if you're approaching an object for the first time, it can be a good idea to have a little bit of magnification. I use circles when I'm polishing. And what I'll do is I'll kind of rub in a circle and make a clean spot, and then I'll clear it and then examine it carefully to see if there's any scratches. So this tarnish layer is actually pretty thick, so it's taking a little while to come off. And you'll find that some objects are going to clean up really quickly and really easily, and some of them are going to take longer. And it just depends on how long that tarnish has been collecting on the surface. Okay, so if you can see, I've made like a little bit of a clean spot here. And now I'm just going to use the cotton to wipe it off. Silver is hard to photograph, and it can be hard to look at also because of the reflective nature of the surface. Sometimes what I'll do is I will angle it so that the white paper is reflecting on it, and then you can really see if you've got any tarnish spots or any silver spots by kind of looking at the white that's reflected in the silver surface. So I would examine this carefully, make sure there are no scratches, and I don't see any. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue polishing. Now, one thing that you can do before you start with the abrasive that can make things go faster is just use the ethanol water solution alone and kind of do a little overall cleaning, get off some of the loose tarnish. There's not a lot of loose tarnish on this particular piece, but sometimes there is, and sometimes you can really shorten the amount of time that you're doing the work by just this pre-cleaning step. So I didn't get very much off, but I gave it a try. So then we've done our test, we've done our pre-cleaning, and we can go ahead and do our polishing. Now, the calcium carbonate on the surface will start to get pretty dirty pretty fast. It'll get kind of gray as it picks up the silver sulfide tarnish layer. Now, it makes it a little difficult to see what you're doing when it gets gray and dirty like that, but it's not actually bad for the silver. So you can go ahead and use your swabs when they're quite dirty, but then as soon as you feel like you just can't see what you're doing, or like now, I might want to change my swab out. This method of polishing silver is quite slow, and there are commercial silver polishes out there. that use harder abrasives that work very quickly. But we do not recommend those because they will scratch your silver. And they often have ammonia in them, which can also cause further tarnishing. Now, it's not necessary to clean your silver absolutely completely all the way. Be aware of the fact that sometimes a little bit of tarnish in the crevices can really highlight surface decoration. These spoons have a little bit of engraving on them. The spoon says Edith in it, so I'm gonna actually leave a little bit of tarnish in the recesses of that etching so that the word is still legible. And there are often kind of little aesthetic decisions that you can make while you're polishing to determine the level of cleaning that you are aiming for. It may not be appropriate for your silver object to look absolutely completely sparkling new. You might want it to have a little bit of an aged look. So, that's just something to consider and to keep in mind as you're polishing. The calcium carbonate polishing technique, while it is a little on the slow side, it gives you a lot of control over the level of cleaning. So, I'm not going to clean the whole thing. I'm just going to do that little bit. So you want to brush off your excess calcium carbonate. And this step can actually be a little bit trickier than it seems. You can use a little bit of moisture, use some of your loose cotton. You can use a rag to dry off and to get off all of the loose calcium carbonate. And then, as a finishing step, I recommend buffing it out with a piece of undyed cotton velvet. And I have some right over here. So here's a nice piece of cotton velvet. And this is a really nice finishing step because it not only catches all of the little loose pieces of calcium carbonate in the crevices, but it also kind of buffs it up to a really nice polish. So you can just rub over your silver like so. And in the end, you will have a beautiful, bright, shiny object. And again, I'll check it. If I check it against the white reflective surface, I don't know if you can see it, if the camera angle can see it, but there's still a lot of tarnish on there. So I would continue polishing this quite a bit longer before I considered it done. Now, if you have a silver object that has stones or other associated materials in it, you're going to want to protect those while you're polishing. You're not going to want the calcium carbonate to come into contact with them because it can scratch. So you can use pieces of paper, or this is Tyvek, to, imagine this were on a hide shirt. You can kind of work it under and take pieces of paper and kind of put them underneath, the edges so that you protect the substrate material. You can also use this parafilm. Parafilm is sort of like a really high quality saran wrap to mask areas that you don't want to be affected by the calcium carbonate. So if you have stones on jewelry, you can use the parafilm to cover the stones. There's paper on the back of this, and it's being a little bit persnickety, so I'm going to take off my glove just so I can show you what this parafilm looks like. It really does not want to come off, does it? There we go. So that's the paper. So this is what the parafilm looks like. It has a little bit of a stretch to it, so you can, if you had a stone, you could mask off the stone area, and then be careful only to use the calcium carbonate on the outside. And that's a way that you can protect adjacent materials. So a little bit of Tyvek or blotter paper or some parafilm are both really useful for composite materials. Thank you.